Major support for these programs is provided by Bank of America Merrill Lynch and Perfect Building Maintenance, New York Community Bank, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, GREENBERG TRAURIG, LLP, M&T Bank, Chase Commercial Term Lending. Additional support is provided by AVR Realty Company, LLC, Bingham McCutcheon, LLP, Briarwood Organization, Bruce MOSLER, Capital One Bank, Cassidy Turley, C.B. Richard Ellis, Chelsea Lighting, Cushman and Wakefield, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development, DDG Partners, Hal Fettner, Durst Fettner Residential, Friedman LLP, Accountants and Advisors, Gemini Real Estate Advisors, LLC, Genova Burns and Gian Tomasi, Investors Bank, James D. CUNY Real Estate Center at Syracuse University, Corman Communities, Madison Realty Capital, Margolin Weiner and Evans, LLP, Certified Public Accountants and Business Advisors, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Site Comply, Sterling and Sterling, SJP Properties, Stonehenge Partners, the WITKOFF Group, Urban American, and Ackman Ziff Real Estate, Ariel Property Advisors, Eastern Consolidated, Essex Capital Partners, Goldman Properties, Moynihan Group, Muss Development, RAL Development Services, the Spandrel Group, LLC, Rosewood Realty Group, Triangle Equities.
So there are kids who grow up in Washington Heights. You know, they want to play baseball. They go into advertising. They create commercials, and then they become restaurateurs. So today, I have the legendary restaurateur, advertising baseball player, Phil Suarez. Thanks.
How are you, sir?
How are you?
I'm well.
So let's, your parents came from Puerto Rico.
Yes.
And you said to me your dad worked for 32 B&J.
Yes, he did.
And your mom was a cook.
My mom was the cook at George Washington High School, where I went to high school.
And you said, were you always living, well, because we were talking about my guest from the prior week, Rabbi Kant Malavani, he was at Yeshiva University. You lived on 189th Street?
I lived 188th in Amsterdam. Yeshiva was 190th or 187th in Amsterdam. In fact, when I was a young lad, I used to go across the street with my buddies, and we used to sing doo-wop on the steps of Yeshiva University.
So let's talk about, when you were growing up, where did you go to public school?
I went to PS 189, which was a long trip, which was right across the street.
And then?
High school was 193rd in Audubon, which was George Washington High School.
You went to George Washington. Now, you were, when you were going to high school, you told me you had a variety of jobs, but one of them was you were working in the French cleaning
Yes,
company?
matter of fact, the original French cleaners, Klein Cleaners on 181st and Wadsworth. And my job was a delivery guy, and I would deliver up to Fort Washington. And if anybody
knew,
a
fancy neighborhood.
Very fancy, and everybody knew that territory. You had to march up about a 3-block hill just to get up to Fort Washington. Then it was another 6 or 7 blocks up another huge hill. So I used to walk up these hills delivering these garments to these folks up there. And of course, I lived on the other side of the trolley, not the tracks, of the other side of the trolley in those days.
But well, you're aging yourself, the trolley. Okay.
Yeah, well.
Now. So when you were going to school, you were a pretty good baseball player, right?
Yeah, I played baseball and basketball at George Washington, and I was lucky enough.
How were you in basketball?
Basketball, I was captain of the team, and fortunately, the year I went, we went to the Final Four of New York City High School basketball.
You went to the Final Four?
Yeah, we played in the Final Four. We lost, but we played. We were one of the 4 finalists. So we came in 3rd in New York that year. And we had some great teams.
And then there was baseball, right?
Yeah, I also played baseball. And if anybody knows anything about George Washington High School, it was one of the great baseball schools at the time also. Guys who've gone there like Rod Carew, Manny Ramirez, and not Phil Suarez in that level, but I had some really good years at George Washington High School.
So now when you're going to college, one of your buddies is working for the legendary George Lois?
Yeah, well, I had a friend named Dennis Mazzella, who was an art director with a guy who was arguably right now considered one of the greatest art directors of all time, if not the greatest. And
Dennis?
George Lois. So he was working as an art director for George, and he called me one day and he said, "Phil, I have this kind of crazy boss who loves sports so much, and he wants to win the advertising league."
Now, these were the leagues in the summer where everybody would play Central Park? Or?
Central Park, for sure.
Central Park.
It would be Mad Men. It would be Benton and Bowles playing Jack Tinker, playing Scally McCabe Sloves, playing Papa Canning Lois, playing.
So they wanted a proverbial ringer?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was.
Young Suarez.
I took a job.
You took the job at the. Did you work there during the summer?
Yes, I did.
Or was your job the windmill?
Well, let me explain. I had the first athletic scholarship in the history of advertising. My job was to pitch softball for Papa Canning Lois, and during the week I would work in the television production department, but I would also be in charge of throwing the Trini Lopez parties for the agency during the week. So I was also a social director for the agency.
Now, how'd you do? Now you left.
We won, undefeated for 3 summers. This is while I was going to college, and I was working there in the summers.
So this was really a great tuition.
It changed my life, for one. I consider George my mentor to this day. It changed my life. You know, I said, gee whiz, these folks are making a living doing this. You know, remember, I'm a guy from 188th and Amsterdam. I've never gone below Central Park. And all of a sudden, in the middle of Mad Ad, if anybody's seen the TV series, well, that's pretty much...
that's what it was like then.
Exactly. And it was just... In fact, my softball team, the infield was making more money than the New York Yankees infield team. Legendary guys like Sam Scally and George Lois and just Carl Alley, they were all part of my infield.
You had a great infield. So you graduated...
I didn't say they were great. I said they were the highest paid.
Oh, okay. So you graduate Parsons, and you go to work as a beer representative?
I worked for Schaefer Beer because, you know, being an athlete I was at the time, they wanted somebody to go into their Spanish neighborhood.
So they put you in the barrio?
They put me in the middle of the barrio. And if anybody knows me, and anybody does know me, knows my command of the Spanish language is...
Your parents made sure that they didn't want you to speak
I think
Spanish.
my parents wanted to be Italian, but I spoke, let's put it this way, I spoke very limited Spanish. And I was in the middle of the barrio.
And what was your job?
My job, I was a missionary guy and a salesman, but mostly I would walk around in those days with Antonino Rocco, those kind of...
You mean the wrestler?
Yes, yeah. The sports legends, that Latin sport, Roberto Clemente, all the sports.
So you'd bring him into what?
I'd bring him into the barrios, into the bodegas, and I would chat him up, and we'd have a beer, and
right, and they'd buy some more beer,
and they'd buy more beers, and it'd be more community relations, salesmen, that kind of thing. And then,
were you continuing to play baseball?
Yeah, I was still playing ball and all that until I noticed that I was getting quite a belly, and you know, you can't. That wasn't my life. I mean,
so how do you get back to advertising?
So I always kept in touch, and I always stayed very close to my friends down at Papert. And one day I got a call from George Lois to get. He started a company called Transnational Communications, which was run by great sports legendary guys like Whitey Ford, Pat Summerall, and they were a public company. And one of the divisions was a company that was called East West Films. And they knew my background in television production. My background was being the ringer, but working all summers for George. And I think I learned enough, and they thought I learned enough to take a shot with me. And I became a sales rep, a manager of East West Films. And that thus began my career in television production. And from there, I met a guy named Bob Giraldi.
How did you meet Bob?
I met him on the basketball court. He was playing for Young and Rubicam, and of course we had a little.
How was your basketball team? Tell me. I know the
Just
basketball
as good as a bunch of just as good as a.
team. So you met Bob on the basketball.
and he
court.
was playing for Young and Rubicam.
You
Again,
you didn't get along at the beginning.
no,
right?
no, no. In fact, we
You
had
a little fight.
We had a
An
little bit
altercation.
of a disagreement.
Right.
And so we got to know each other a little bit. My wife worked at Della Femina, and Bob was an art director there. And then one day he gave me a call and wanted to know if I'd be interested in partnering up with him in a potential film company.
So when does that start?
So that starts in 1970, 71. And we formed a company called Ampersand with Elbert Buden, who was arguably at that time the best tabletop director in the country. And we lasted there about a year and a half. Bob managed to direct some of the best commercials ever made at that time. The Eyewitness News
right, that's the first
campaign.
one. That was the first one that
won all the awards.
Right, 1970 with Geraldo.
Geraldo Rivera.
Right.
And it was called a Puerto Rican Wedding. So guess what? I love that one. And then he also did some great commercials for leukemia, and we won a lot of awards that year. And then we broke away and formed Giraldi Suarez Productions, which was commercials, videos, and movies.
And some of those, let's talk about some of those commercials and videos. I mean, you did the legendary Michael Beat It.
Yes,
for Michael Jackson.
that was a matter of fact, that was our first video called Beat It, and people who follow MTV and follow Michael's career knew that it was a pretty darn good commercial.
And then besides that?
We did Beat It. We did all of Lionel Richie's videos. We did all of
and then you did a lot of shows.
Paul McCartney.
Right? You did Evita and some other
Then we did Broadway. We also did Broadway shows, Evita, Dreamgirls, on and on. And then we also...
Didn't you do one of the movies that Bob tried to direct something with Danny Aiello or something?
it's called Dinner Rush.
Dinner Rush.
He didn't try, he did.
Oh,
I executive produced it, and we did a thing called Dinner Rush. And a lot of people to this day say it's one of the better food movies made. It was really, really a good movie. Anybody hasn't gotten it, it's still out on, you can get it at your Blockbuster or your...
Redbox. And that Redbox won't have. So now here's the guy over here. You're in TV, and as you said to me, you used to have, because of the advertising business, you had 3 tables at different restaurants?
Well, that's pretty much how my job was to get the business for our company. And to do that in those days, you had to entertain a lot. So there was nothing...
Gallagher's?
I had a table at Gallagher's, I had a table at Mike Minucci's, I had a table at the Palm, and I had, for my really good customers, I had a table at Granui. And so that's what I did. And I'd have 2, sometimes 3 meetings in restaurants a day. And
You were holding court.
I was holding court and having a good time.
Now, subsequently, you're also in Fire Island.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people go over to Fire Island on the ferry, they never leave during the week. You know, you're in Fire Island, and you were always entertaining because that was part of your job. And you said that you were very involved with the Cheese Whiz, right? That was...
Well, that was funny because...
Chef Whiz.
Well, there was a place in, if anybody knows the area, Saltaire, Fair Harbor, there was a restaurant at that time called Cornelius. And Cornelius was his take on gourmet food was used to put a Cheese Whiz platter out on your table, and that was his amuse-bouche at the times. And it was hard for me to entertain there, and I would take a lot of these advertising big shots, and the whole town was full of advertising people. Della Femina, Sam Scally, George Lois, they were all in this town.
And then you also had Mel Brooks.
And Mel Brooks, and so at that time it was really, and one of my friends there said, Phil, why don't we take this place over? I said, well, I don't know a heck of a lot about restaurants, but I know I eat in them a lot and I enjoy them.
You're about 36 at this time.
Maybe a little even earlier, maybe 33, 34, but okay, but I remember those days. Anyway, we opened up
Le Doc.
a place called Le Doc, and it was on the water, and I opened it in 1976, and that was my first restaurant.
So you had it in your blood.
Absolutely.
Okay, it was on the blood. So what happens one day that, legendary Ken Oretzky calls you about going to Park Avenue South, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you find a restaurant on 20th Street?
In those days, there wasn't one restaurant from 14th Street to 23rd Street, if you can imagine, on both sides of the avenue. And he called me, he says, Phil, I have this wonderful space, and would you be interested in, I know you're dabbling a little bit in restaurants, would you be interested? I said, okay. You know, I like you, Ken, and I kind of like I know about the restaurant world because I live in them. And I said, I'll take a shot. But circumstances be what they are, or what they were. He changed his mind at the last minute to go in business with, he opened up the Lobster House or the Lobster Club, and he said, Phil, I'm so sorry. I said, well, what do I do now? I said, so I took it upon myself to say, all right, I'm going to take this challenge, and I'm going to Positano because I love Positano. And everybody looked at me. I said, I want an authentic Italian restaurant. So I went to Positano.
You traveled to Italy. You
to find the chef.
To find the chef. So, and you go to the famous hotel.
Yeah, Syracuse.
Syracuse, which is right in the heart of Positano.
Exactly.
And you told me that the chef, the community wanted the chef to work for you. And he came there, he was interviewed a number of times. What happened?
The same chef kept on showing up. And I was looking at this young guy, Luigi Celentano, and he just kept on showing up. And I said, well, okay, well, it looks interesting. Finally, I hired him. I brought him over to New York. I got him a job at Tre Scalini in Dal Silvano to learn how they cook in New York, Italian. I sent him to Berlitz to learn English, and 3 months later, I found out that the whole town was behind him because he had a very, very tragic event happen, and his wife and child died in giving birth. And he was up in the hills feeling bad, and the whole town loved him and adored him. And he's still with me since 1980.
So when do you open up Positano?
I opened up Positano in 1980. Positano.
Right. And so this is, at this time you own the Dock, which is really a summer place.
Right, exactly.
And you have Positano, and you're still in the business, in the advertising business. You were in the business till like 2005. So what happens later on? It's 1988, and you meet this French guy?
I met this young, handsome French chef. I had some.
You were probably entertaining it.
I was, but they wanted to go to Côte Basque, and I said, guys, maybe you want to try this new chef who's come from Boston, who I've heard is just pretty amazing young man.
And his name was?
His name was Jean-Georges von Goreschen.
Von Goreschen, right. And he came from, he was born in Alsace?
He's an Alsatian, yeah. He's from Alsace, and I took him up there, and I looked, the restaurant was, as he is doing now, he was cooking behind this wonderful glass wall, and he walked around the restaurant, and he was just, you know, and the food was unbelievable. It wasn't a French restaurant, it was his restaurant, his interpretation of French food at the time.
So how do you talk to I mean, you know, this time you had one restaurant, the other one was a part-time restaurant. How do you talk to him? I mean...
Well, I didn't talk to him. The fellows I was with, I went away to do a shoot, and they convinced him to come along and be a consultant for us. And they called me in Europe, and I said, fine. Are you kidding? The guy is just magnificent. We got to know each other. Maybe 7, 8 months later, I get a call, and he wanted to know if I was, and before he said interested, I was at his doorstep.
So what was the first restaurant that you...
Jojo.
Jojo. Where was Jojo?
Jojo is 64th Street, still is. 64th Street between 3rd and Lex.
And what year was that?
1990, 1991, 1990.
Now, I mean, you and Jean-Georges with the Suarez group and his, you know, restaurant group, how many restaurants have you opened up?
Well, right now we're into the 30s. We have about 32 restaurants now. Some management, some we own, some license deals, and we've been together for 24 years now.
So besides Jojo, I mean, you opened up in Trump International, which is very well known.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of history. Our next restaurant after that was Vong. If you remember Vong in the Lipstick Building.
In the Lipstick Building, which was open for like 18 years, right?
Absolutely. And then from there, he said, Phil, you know, I think I'm ready to go back into 4-star dining. And I'm not one to argue with his, you know, his aspirations. and we opened up John George in the Trump Hotel.
Trump Hotel, which was the old Gulf and Western building. Right,
Absolutely.
which you would remember from your advertising. Right?
Yeah, well, up
On the,
on top.
terrible restaurant on top, right?
And the building shook. If you remember the building, you'd go up there, have a drink, and you didn't know if you drank too much or the building was shaking. So we opened that, and from there we opened up Mercer Kitchen,
Right.
Spice Market.
Right, but I think, we were talking when we got together, besides all the restaurants, a lot of them were for changing neighborhoods. The same way that when you went to Park Avenue South in 1980, Mercer wasn't really a neighborhood for certain type of restaurants, and I think really the Spice Market. How do you open up the Spice Market?
Well, it just came to me as more of a real estate deal, and I looked at the space, and it was 20,000 square feet at the time of just, it was an old moving storage building, and I just felt that the space was too good to give up, and finally convinced John George. It took me a couple of years to convince him to. I took the lease, I held on to it, and I finally convinced him, let's do something. And he agreed, and he came up with the idea of Spice Market, the foods of Southeast Asia. And
what about the mandarins? You've gone to Hong Kong.
Yeah, we also, that's part of our portfolio, right. we do also a lot of out of town.
I mean, you're in Bellagio.
Yes, we are. We're in Bellagio with Prime, which is
one of the highest grossing restaurants in the world.
Yes, it is, and still is. And it's a great steakhouse at the Bellagio, and anybody who hasn't been there, it's terrific. Go. And we also have another steakhouse in Vegas now at the area, the new city center, called John George Steakhouse. And we've during our 90s, we opened up in Hong Kong. We opened up in London. We did management deals for the Savoy Group and for the Mandarin Group in Hong Kong.
Right, and then a number of years ago, you did a major program with Barry Sternlicht's company, Starwood.
Starwood. Well, Barry wasn't at the company at the time.
Right.
Yeah, he had left and create Starwood Capital.
And what was the deal with Starwood?
Well, Starwood, we agreed we had a 5-year deal to develop restaurants for them at the W's and the St. Regis hotels. We had the right of first refusal to open up as a partner with the Starwood Group, and we opened up in Boston, in Washington, D.C., Mexico City. I can go on and on. We've opened about 10 or 12 different types of restaurants with them. And John George, being as prolific he is, he's really...
he's in the kitchen, taking care of it, and you're running the business, finding the locations and everything else.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to make the deals. Yeah,
it's a great partnership in that way. And then also, you said to me, Lucy, your wife, didn't you open up a restaurant?
Well, I opened a restaurant in her name called Lucy's, which is now ABC Kitchen. She still hasn't forgiven me for changing it to
How
ABC
could you
Kitchen.
do that?
But when she saw the idea that we were going to come up with, she loved it, because I had taken Patria, which was a Latin restaurant, and brought it over to become Lucy, and that was just an interim kind of thing.
And then what about, besides that, in Wagner Park, what about the...
Well, that's Gigino's. The Gigino's in Wagner Park, and that's Luigi Celentano, my dear friend, and
for 30 years, right?
Who's been with me for 30 years. And if anybody's been down to Wagner Park in Gigino, it probably has one of the best views in all of New York City. If you sit outside on the table outside on Wagner Park, you're looking directly 50-yard line, Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island. It's just amazing.
And since you were a basketball player, and since you went to the Garden, you're recently in the Garden now.
Yes, I am.
Let's talk about that and Simply Chicken.
Oh, that's great. That's great fun.
Okay,
thanks, because you're talking about one of my loves is Madison Square Garden, which I've been a Knicks season ticket since 1969, season ticket holder since '69. I've seen Hawthorne, Wingo, and I'm still going, and I'm not a fair weather fan.
So
I'm a great fan.
How do you get, from playing basketball to be the food man at the Garden?
Well, you know what? I have great friends over there, and guys like Hank Ratner and Joel Fisher and those guys. They just called me one day and told me they're doing a tremendous change, making a tremendous change at the Garden. They're putting almost $800 million to $1 billion in making the Garden
And they didn't want Harry M. Stevens type of food anymore, right?
Absolutely. They wanted to give it a New York City feel. And so they went out to a few restaurateurs, and I was one of them, of course. And I agreed to do a concession idea with them, and also to do a specialty, a special menu for the suites and for the Delta Club.
Right. So you're making the chicken right now, sir?
Right now, our newest and greatest is Simply Chicken.
And let's talk. What's
Simply Chicken is just
it's
like
like
the
a
name.
roast compola?
Oh no, nothing to do with a roast compola.
Okay,
Be
okay.
careful. That's my staple. That's my
I know.
That's my blood. So Simply Chicken is a very simple, as the name implies. It's John George's interpretation of a chicken sandwich, a chicken salad,
Chicken Frank?
a chicken hot dog.
Chicken hot dog.
No, chicken fry. Chicken hot dog. Organic chicken, chicken tacos, which is not in the garden, which will soon coming, and we will be doing chicken chili burger, soup, and it's working like crazy. The chicken sandwich is just amazing, and you know, I have visions of perhaps taking this to airports and to, you know.
There's no question, the food courts and everything else. But you know, over the years, you've given back to the community a lot. You're involved with Big Brothers. But I think one thing that I read about is that you're most proud of was to be nominated for the James Beard.
Oh yeah, well that was, thank you. But they nominated me as the best restaurateur in the country. And
a great honor.
A great honor. And you know, I was very thrilled and humbled by it.
And in addition to that, you know, we are on the City University. You got involved with John Jay College.
Yeah, John Jay. I'm a trustee on the board. I'm the board of trustees of John Jay College, and yeah, I really like what they've been doing, and with the minority folks with forensics, and it's just an amazing school.
I failed to bring out one other thing, and we only have like a minute and a half, but you also, with Richard Meyer and with Ira Drucker and Richard Bourne, were in another area. You built legendary apartments.
Well, yeah, I was one of the developers with Richard and Ira Bourne and John George and I of the apartments on the highway on the west side, on Perry Street on West Side Highway. And people who go by it, if you look at the three glass towers, two of them are buildings that I developed with these folks. And one day I just dawned upon me that these things should really have to change the look of the landscape of New York City. And Richard Meyer is one of my great friends forever and ever. And he always told me, I want to get back in New York. He did the Westbeth apartments maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And I want to get back into the city. And I just threw it out at the guys. That I said, why don't we have Richard Meyer design these buildings for us? Because they originally wanted us to do a hotel condominium there, and the math at the time didn't work. And I just came up with this idea, and I believe it
changed the neighborhood.
It changed the neighborhood, and also the landscape of New York.
Of New York. 20 seconds left. Lucy, I brought up. You married to Lucy how many years?
My lovely, adorable Lucy. Anybody who knows Lucy, she's the best. I'm married 43 years come November 9th. I don't want to forget that.
You better not forget that.
That's great.
And even though you changed the name from Lucy's to
Lucy, she forgives me. She still loves me. I know she does.
So, you know, for the kid who's the ringer, you know, who, you know, had the windmill pitch.
Oh, the windmill, this way.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought, you know, in softball, you know, and played with the Madmen. You know, the kid from Washington Heights, you know, really has moved around and has done a great job. And you and John George have made food a different thing, the world of food and the food of the world of dining. And I'd like to thank you for being here today.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you.